So I guess last year we were drinking while we were under the age. He's like, here's your media pass. Come back and we'll give you your press kit. And I'm like, thank you. She was like 23, so I didn't have it in my heart to call her ma'am, even though she had called me sir. Oh, John's trying to be sneaky. See, you didn't start the show. See, it still says 27:15 on the timer. So, now the show's going to be like 4 seconds too long. I'm going to have to mentally subtract 4 seconds every time you give good evening, everyone. For the first time ever, this show is vaguely being broadcast live on the internet, except it's not broadcasting because it's on the internet, so it's single casting, kind of. If you're watching on the internet, for God's sakes, get a life. I mean, go outside, watch a movie. Why are you watching this? It doesn't make a darn, you've never seen it before? Unless you've gone to my website, in which case you have seen it before. In either case, you should know better. It's February, it's 2011. For me, for you, God knows when. I'm going to start with the thing that people have called me about all week. It started on Sunday, like 12:30 in the afternoon. My brother called me and went, "Are you going to sue?" And I'm like, "Sue who?" And he's like, "Those SNL guys." And then in my head, I was trying to think, what could SNL possibly stand for that I would want to sue? So I'm like, Sudanese National Liberation Army? No, I haven't done anything to me lately. And then he's like, Saturday Night Live, they stole your idea. And I'm like, really? I guess I should have watched last night. Because normally, I would tape Saturday Night Live, and then I would watch like the first half through the news thing, fast forwarding over the music, because I usually don't like the musical acts on SNL. I don't know why they have them. I'm like, you could put comedy there. And then I wouldn't fast forward through it unless it had one of the couple people. There were skits that I just like, if Pat came on, I was like, forward. There's that one with the... Anyway, suffice it to say, I did not see Saturday Night Live because my DVR failed to tape it. Because I failed to tell my DVR to tape it. But really, it should know. It should be smarter. Normally, I used to have a standing subscription to tape it, but then I switched DVRs because I decided to get high-def television because I decided to join the 20th century 10 years late. Or 11 years in this case. So I was like, I want to see things in high def. I mean, I bought high-def televisions like 4 years ago. And everything in my house was still single def except off the Blu-ray player. And so I was watching crappy television for 4 years because I'm lazy and couldn't be bothered to get the high def stuff. Anyway, I finally got it after my brother was like, I'm thinking of getting high def for the house. And I'm like, I can't let him be ahead of me. So I got it 3 days earlier than him. Anyway, back to my brother. He's the guy that called me and he's like, you should sue them. I'm like, sue them for what? He's like, they stole your idea. And I'm like, well, I'm an idea guy. They've probably stolen lots of them. He's like, no, the pills thing. They had a thing. They did a skit about your pills. And I was like, really? They mentioned my pills on Saturday Night Live. I might actually sell some of them, for God's sakes. And that's the kind of advertising. He's like, no, it was like El Shrinko or something. You should go. So then I went to the internet and I found it. And yes, they did this skit about this fake product called El Shrinko that nerds take that makes their penises smaller, which they do because their penises are already really ungodly small, and so they want to have a reason that they're so small. And it was very disturbing because, first of all, these are professional comedy writers, and secondly, I think my crap was funnier than theirs. So I'm like, you people are just phoning it in at this point, aren't you? You're like, it's got to be like the 40th season of Saturday Night Live. I mean, Jim Belushi, if he hadn't died, would be dead from old age by now. SNL, not the first people that have stolen my idea. First of all, Jay Leno stole my idea a couple years ago, back when he had a show at 10 o'clock. Remember, back when Jay was going to move to 10 o'clock and give Conan the Night? Yeah, that didn't work out. And let me tell you, his little fake penis commercial didn't work out either. It was like retracts. I put it on my website for a while. And then I looked at my web logs and no one watched it from my website. So I'm like, apparently either no one goes to my website or everyone hates Jay Leno. Or both. Craig Ferguson made this joke once, and so I was like, Man, I love Craig Ferguson. He's on at night and he has puppets. And sometimes they sing. And the rest of the time he's funny without puppets. But with the puppets, he's hilarious. In the dancing, in the singing, in the... So I mailed him a box. And I assume it got thrown in a dumpster, because if I was Craig Ferguson, or more likely a member of Craig Ferguson's staff, and a box arrived that said penis reduction pills, he'd be like, no, Mr. Ferguson is not seeing this. Get this out of the building as quickly as possible. Perhaps we should call security and have it sniff for bombs. Anyway, rest assured, everyone, legal proceedings are underway. As soon as I can figure out how to hire a lawyer, and as soon as my lawyer tells me, well, yeah, you do look like you have enough money to pay me, so I'd be glad to sue them. Because that's the way it's going to work. You can't sue NBC. They own General Electric, and General Electric makes those biplanes you can't see on radar that drop bombs on people that don't know they're coming. So I assume if I file suit, there'll just be an accident and much of Santa Clara will disappear in a cloud of some sort. Anyway, big news this week. First big news, we get up at Casa de Statenfield on Saturday morning, and my sister-in-law Maureen goes out to her car to do something, and then she comes back in. She's like, my car is gone. Did you guys take it somewhere? And I'm like, in my head, briefly, I think, what could I say really funny that would be where I would have taken Maureen's car? But I hadn't had coffee yet, so the brain wasn't working. So I just said, no. She's like, it's not there. Okay, still no coffee, so the brain says, no. Okay, the second no didn't make any sense, but I had to say something because she looked distraught. And so someone frickin' stole her car from the street. We're like, it's like an 11-year-old Honda. Why do you steal 11-year-old Hondas? Who steals an 11-year-old Honda? So then it's gone, right? We call the police. The police are like, what? They come out, they take a police report, I guess, and then Maureen's like angry all weekend. She's angry. And you're like, well, of course she's angry. Someone stole her car. Even if it's an 11-year-old car, you can get attached to it. She's like, it had my bumper stickers on it. And I'm thinking, well, we could buy new bumper stickers, I guess, but it wouldn't be the same, would it? Someone else is driving around with her bumper. And then I started, like, when I'm driving around, I'm looking for her car. But the problem is I don't remember what her car looks like. other than that it has these bumper stickers in the back. So I'm like, every car to me looks like her car now. I'm like, it's not even the right color, but what if they painted it? What if they stole her car and then painted it green, but not well, right? It's not a good green paint job. What if they painted it weathered green? You know, I've watched enough home improvement shows to know you can like do an antique paint job so that the paint job looks old. If you're a car thief, to me that's the perfect thing, right? You steal a car and then you paint it car antique in a different color than the car is, because no one's going to notice. They're going to be like, oh, that looks like my car, but my car was red and that car is blue. It must not be my car, even though it's got my license plate on it. I must just remember the number. God, if you're a real car thief, don't do that. That would be fiendish. That would be fiendish to paint cars to look... Okay, so Maureen's car stolen over the weekend. And we speculated endlessly about who stole it. In my head, it was mostly spies. Because I think... Or someone who needed to rescue orphans. Like, maybe someone was walking by on the street, and at the exact same instant... a pack of orphans, I don't know what the collective for orphans is. It could be like a pod of orphans, or a hassle of orphans is probably what it is. Hassle is probably the compound nerd for orphans. So a hassle of orphans somehow gets injured in some way that doesn't leave any incriminating evidence behind. So this person seeing the hassle of orphans be injured and seeing Maureen's car there and thinking, Hondas, those are very reliable. I could get all of these orphans to the hospital very quickly and efficiently, much more efficiently than calling an ambulance, if I were to just borrow this Honda, which I will leave a note, and I will return the Honda after the orphan. So, you know, quick, let's get all the orphans into the car. Let's get in the car. Let's pick the lock very carefully. We don't want to damage it. It's not our car, right? Car full of orphans, quickly pick the lock. He's probably a spy. They train them to quickly pick locks, so it doesn't take long, right? In the car, off, down the road, get them to wherever you need to get them, to the hospital or the mall or it would depend on the emergency with the orphans. It could be a hospital emergency, could be a shopping emergency. Okay, so, get them there, take care of the problem. Meanwhile, unfortunately, someone came by and the rock got moved, and so the note blew away. So now Maureen's angry because she didn't see the note about how rescue the orphans. I have your car. I'll fill it up before I bring it back. Terribly sorry. And then maybe the orphan rescuing guy would. Okay, enough with the orphan rescue. And Maureen's angry all weekend, and we're speculating about the thief. We never came up with a good idea. And then like Wednesday, they call and they go, we found your car. You have to come get it, otherwise we're going to tow it. So we drive up there to get it, and there's a nice policeman, a nice kind of portly policeman, looks exactly like a guy that's been a cop for 30 years should look, and just very genial, we found your car. There's nothing wrong with it except that the radio's gone, and if you had a spare tire, that's gone. But yeah, we find them here sometimes. They get dumped. No one knows why. So now in my head, I'm like, this is CSI, right? So you should have profiled the guy who took the car. You've already, I'm sure, brought in the lasers to look for the fingerprints. And of course, you scanned the entire area. Are there any like ATMs you could pull videotape from that might show the person driving by in the car so we could get a glimpse of their face? And then we could zoom in like 4,000 times. And then we could run that face through our computer and match it up with the 1/8 profiles of potential car thieves. And we'd find a guy that had stolen cars and also was not an orphan rescuer, because you'd want to exclude orphan rescuers. And no, that's not what they do. He's like, yeah, I looked for fingerprints, didn't find any. We think there's a guy around here that steals cars, but we don't know if it's him. Anyway, take your car. So, mystery solved. We have the car back. Now we're paranoid to leave it anywhere. This car has become incredibly valuable. I was thinking can I get a really big chain? And we could put the chain around the big electrical box outside of our house. And lock it there, and then lock the other end to the car. And I'm like, and then wait, here's the genius part. Then we could paint the chain black, so that if he did steal the car, and he tried to get in it, he'd get about 2 feet, and then the chain would go taut, right? And then it would stop, and then he'd whack his head on the steering wheel, and then he'd get out and run, and then we'd be able to tell the policeman, you're looking for a guy with a big red thing on his forehead. And then if they're like, yeah, the guy in this neighborhood, doesn't he have a big red thing on his forehead? Anyone see him lately? Big red thing? And he'd be in jail. That's what I think I've learned from CSI is you gotta. So that's that. We went and saw a play last week up in San Francisco called Next to Normal. We have tickets to this Best of Broadway thing, and they just mail us. They're like, you get to see 4 plays a year. And I'm like, cool. Do we get to pick? They're like, no, you'll see the 4 plays that we send you tickets for. I'm like, well, that doesn't seem fair. I'm paying you money and you're making me go see these plays. And they're like, well, these are the only plays we have. I'm like, it's San Francisco. There's plays all over the place. Couldn't I see? No, these are the ones for you. So I had never heard of this. So we go up to see Next to Normal last week. Here's my thought. There should be warning labels on plays. Or on the tickets or something, right? Because I looked at these tickets afterwards and they just said, Next to Normal, Orpheum Theater, 8 o'clock p.m. I forget what our seats were. They were like the sixth row or something. There was nothing on there about this play is going to screw with your head. There's nothing. And I looked. I took my glasses off so I could see things close up in case they'd print it in little letters in the back. They hadn't. This play needs a warning label. This play needs you're going to see crazy people, and then they're going to vaguely remind you of your life, and then it's going to screw with your head. is what it's going to do. We've seen a bunch of plays from Best of Broadway that have done that. Like a couple years ago, we went to see a play, and I remember the name of the play was Shakespeare's A Midsummer's Night something Dream. Midsummer's Night Dream, I think. And I'm like, I think I read that in college. I don't remember the plot, but I don't think it was terrible. So we went to see it. It wasn't in English. I mean, parts of it were just enough to make you think, because they're musicals, right? So sometimes you don't hear all the words, but you kind of get what they're saying after a while, and they go back and they. So like I'm watching this play, and like they start out in English, and then all of a sudden I don't know what they're saying. So I think I'm not hearing it right, and I kind of listen, and then I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense still. And then it turns out like 95% of the play was in other languages. They were like, oh, if I happened to be really cosmopolitan and knew English and Hindu and Urdu and the dialect spoken by the Ewoks on the garden planet Endor, and possibly Klingon. I think I do seem to recall some Klingon from near the second act or something. If I knew all of those languages, I might have known what happened in Shakespeare's A Midsummer's Night Dream. But I don't. So I just sat there and watched people prance around and talk in languages I don't. There should have been a warning label. There should have been like, if that one, the warning label should have said, you shouldn't come. Should have said, if you should stay home. Just you'll be thankful. We'll save you the tank of gas, and you can buy a book. You can buy Shakespeare. You can probably get it for free on the internet, and then you can read it, and then you'll know what happened, and then just imagine it happening in other languages, and it'll be exactly. We once saw this play. This wasn't a bad play, but again, should have had a warning label. We once saw this thing called Slava's Snow Show. Slava's Snow Show. It was hard to say quickly, and it was Russian clowns. So I was like, okay. Well, I guess fall of the Soviet Union, we had to get something. They got to export something besides oil, and they exported clowns. Apparently, the country's filthy with clowns. And there were clown things, there were funny things, and there was this part in the middle where the clowns were sad. And I was like, oh, sad clowns. I'm scared of clowns. I don't like sad clowns. So I'm simultaneously scared and sad. That's not good. That's not good. But the part there should be a warning label for was near the end of the show. Like not near the end, at the end of the show. Like it's kind of a set, and when you got in, it's Slava Snow Show, right? So the theaters, it's filled with like snow on the ground, like little ground up paper snow, and you're like, oh, that's nice. It's just atmosphere, right? There's little tufts of paper on the ground to make me think of snow. No, like the last scene of the play, they open the curtains, and then they open this curtain that was at the back of the stage, and there are these ungodly huge fans there. And then they turn all of the ungodly huge fans on, and then they start dumping paper in front of the fans, okay? So for like 10 minutes, it was like staring into a blizzard. Except the blizzard was paper, and the lights were on really high, and the clowns were doing something. I forget what, but it's hard to remember what clowns are doing when you're staring directly into a blizzard. I liked it, but a warning label, right? There should have been, if you get paper cuts early, don't come to this play. Paper cuts easily, don't come to this play, because you would walk out badly. This next to normal play, right? It sucked me in, right? Like I hadn't heard anything about it. Next to normal, I'm like, well, okay. Maybe normal's a place, like next to normal, Ohio, or maybe next to normal. It could be a romantic comedy for all I know. And it starts out, and there's this lady, and within like 2 or 3 minutes, you realize she's a little bit crazy. You're like, well, this is good, because a little bit crazy is funny. Like, a little bit crazy can be hilarious. Then she went really crazy. Really crazy, not funny. Really crazy, not hilarious at all. Warning labels. If you work on Broadway, call me. I'll give you a quick set. Other news, I may have mentioned this before, but I haven't edited the last show, so none of you know it. My sister-in-law bought a house, so she's not going to live with me anymore. I'm going to have to make my own damn coffee in the morning. So I am sad But currently she still does live with me because even though she bought a house, it's not good enough to move into. Now I recall when I bought my house, we thought, what could we possibly do before we moved in? And we were in an apartment, so we decided we would have the floors cleaned. With one, we hired a company and they came out with one of them vans, I think, and then they carpet scrubbed all the carpets in the house, and it took like 4 hours. And then we moved in. We might have waited a day. As I recall, I closed on a Wednesday, and I think they cleaned on Thursday, and then we moved in on Saturday. Maureen has much grander plans. She bought a house. She's like, I don't like any of the floors. I'm like, are they not floory enough? And she's like, well, there was a dog in there and it tore it up. And I'm like, yes, the dog did. And then she's like, oh, I want to paint. I lived in my house like 10 years before I painted anything. We painted every room in her house in like 2 weeks. So the whole house, we painted the floors in some cases, okay? She's like, well, I want to seal in any dog odors. I'm like, okay. So we went out and bought this paint, this designed to seal odors in. It's got shellac in it. And I guess shellac is good at sealing things in. And then since I knew we had to paint a lot, and since I buy toys / tools, they're one and the same. I was like, well, I've already got the power roller, but maybe that's not a fast enough way to paint. So we bought a paint sprayer. Because I had seen people use paint spray. And to me, a paint sprayer is great. It's like having an endless spray can, except bigger. Because on the spray can, you can spray an area maybe like this big in front of you, right? And so you could buy a lot of spray cans, and then you could start at one corner of your house, and okay. Or you could go to Lowe's and give them money, and they would give you this thing, and then you could stand 6 feet back from the wall with this long tube, and you go. Okay, we painted walls in 8 minutes. I mean, true, it took us an hour to tape everything off beforehand, but you had to tape off the other way too, right? So you'd tape everything off, take you an hour, then it would take you 2 hours, and you bend it over with the rollers, roll. Okay, or you get the paint sprayer, and you're and 8 minutes later you're done. Except in the case of this primer with the shellac, which didn't know this until we started painting. Shellac is dissolved in alcohol, denatured alcohol that dissolves shellac. When you're spraying paint dissolved with alcohol, as soon as the paint leaves the paint sprayer, all the alcohol evaporates. So as we're spraying these rooms, this back bounce of alcohol keeps hitting me. I have to leave every 4 minutes to go breathe. And I think I actually got a pretty good contact high from some of the smaller rooms. I purposely didn't drive for an hour after painting, just so. So we painted the entire house, paint. But like I said, Maureen didn't like the floors, so she already knew she was going to change them. Here's the cool thing. If you know you don't care about most of the stuff in your house, it is ungodly easy to paint compared to normal. We didn't put down tarps. We didn't tape off the baseboards. We pretty much put plastic over the windows, and that was it. Now the floors look like crap now, worse than when she bought the place. But she's changing them. It's really, if you're going to paint, just set aside an extra $6,000 to replace all your floors. You're like, that's a lot of money, but my point is that blue tape adds up. It might be easier just to replace all the floors. Also in her house, Maureen has a furnace. And Maureen and I are painting, and another friend of hers comes over to help paint, and there's the furnace, and we thought, well, that thermometer you bought, that thermostat sucks. I mean, it makes this noise, and it doesn't even have a processor in it, for God's sake. So you need a modern thermostat that can turn the temperature on 9 times an hour. So we bought a modern thermostat, and then we were going to install it. And then we did install it, and then her furnace stopped working. Because apparently we didn't get the wires up correctly. So now she needs a new furnace. and I'd feel bad about this, but I wasn't the guy that connected the wires up incorrectly. That's all I'm saying. Okay, I don't have time for the rest of that page. Here's people say, Keith, what the heck's happened in Egypt and Tunisia? And first of all, I'm like, really, Tunisia? You didn't even know where Tunisia was before like 6 days ago. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, do you know where Tunisia is now? They're like, no. I'm like, is Tunisia in the Middle East? And they're like, yes, I think it is. And I'm like, no, Tunisia's in Africa. And they're like, really? Africa? Like Libya? I'm like, no, it's next to Libya, actually. They're like, oh, that's like near South Africa. And I'm like, no, it's not. Not at all near South Africa. It's on the north side. Back to Egypt, and they're like, well, Keith, what's going on in Egypt? I have no idea. Apparently people in Egypt are unhappy with the people who are in charge in Egypt, which means what's happening in Egypt is exactly like what's happening with the Tea Party now here in America, except here those Tea Party people are crazy. So in the back of my head, I'm like, I really feel for all of you Egyptians. I think you're living under a dictator, but if I haven't been paying attention, what if you're all freaking crazy? I don't think they're all freaking crazy. And the reason I don't think they're all freaking crazy is because Anderson Cooper got beat up in Egypt. And I think CNN doesn't send him places to get beat up unless the story's important. But if you recall, they didn't send him down, to Louisiana before Katrina. They sent him down there after Katrina. Because before Katrina, it was just like, oh, look, weather. Whereas after Katrina, it was, look, oh, shit, weather. Guy in charge of Egypt is named Hosni Mubarak. I'm like, Hosni, that's a funny name. But I bet if you told him that, you'd be in prison. And not like a nice prison. Like those prisons we send people to get rendered to. Like the really... Lastly, I don't have much time. Currently, there's the snowpocalypse in the middle of this country. I know because my mother sent me pictures. I called my mother on the phone. I'm like, I heard you were snowed in. Because I was trying to make like a joke. And she's like, yes, we're snowed in. I'm like, really? How much snow have you got? She's got, we got like 5 feet of snow in the last day. I'm like, really? 5 feet? That's a lot. 5 feet's a lot of snow. Look, I'm out of time. I forgot to subtract 4 seconds, so I'm way over already. Good night. Goodbye, everyone. See you next month. Or if you're on the internet, I think it's coming up. Wait, you can see if anything comes up again. Look. Let's see. No, look. I haven't gotten the Sharpie on the internet yet. Now I've gotten the Sharpie on the internet. So if we can time how long the thing went, look, I've got a Sharpie. And when I said I've got a Sharpie on the internet, we know how far behind our internet is. I didn't get to do the snowboard. Well, I got to it. I just realized there was no chance that I was going to be able to cover the snowboard in 4 seconds. So I talked about